Well, Pete and I are happy to have with us Digger Phelps, a fellow that needs no introduction around the circles of collegiate basketball or anywhere else for that matter. Matter of fact, you did a pretty good job at church this morning, Digger.
Oh, thank you.
I saw you really put into that collection.
I noticed, yeah, but I noticed you're a little short in that collection.
I didn't see, you know, Pete, he goes ahead and puts in and takes some change out. He's like Al McGuire, you know. But what I want to talk to you about, Digger, and Pete and I will get on it a little bit here, is the competition that we're going to face. You've spent an awful lot of time in Europe. You've probably coached as many games against international competition as any collegiate coach we have in America. What do we have to look forward to? Who's going to be tough?
Well, Billy, what I don't think people have realized, since '72, when Russia won against the United States, there has really been a lot of confidence in Europe, including the Iron Curtain countries, to really emphasize basketball. In '76, we saw Yugoslavia do an excellent job of getting to the finals against us. And, of course, 1980, when we don't go to Russia, Yugoslavia wins the gold medal. Italians finish second, and the Russians beat Spain, a very good team, for the bronze. What has really happened, the international teams, their coaches, their younger players, they have a real thirst for basketball. The American finesse. A lot of the European teams would go to Brazil and Argentina and learn the physical game. What has happened since that time? As an example, last year when the Italian national team was over here on tour, their junior national coach spent a week at Kentucky and a week at Notre Dame to learn and watch during our in-season of practice, and taking some of that finesse, the drills, the things we like to do, back to Italy. What has happened now, they have closed that gap. The biggest mistake we're making in this country is to assume that we will win every year the gold medal.
One of the things, and Digger, Pete and I were talking about it earlier in the first ball game. I asked Pete a little bit about 1960, and he really brought up something interesting to me, and the fact that the Soviets in 1960 assumed they were going to win because they had never seen our collegiate players before, and they thought all we had were AAU players. And when they saw these new names of West and Robertson, they didn't realize these guys could play. So Pete had something on them. But we're almost in the opposite situation now of trying to be a little bit naive. Tell us about the Yugoslavian team. They have, in my mind, kind of aged out with that great nucleus they had for 76 and 80. What do they have left?
There's different trends of what's going on in Europe. I would say that Yugoslavia right now, it's too political. Their players know there's politics involved. There's three situations in Yugoslavia. There's Belgrade, which is one of the three, Zagreb, which has the Western Front, and then down on the coast, Zadar. Those are the three Division I teams. There's 12 teams in Division I in Yugoslavian basketball. They play for a national championship like we have our NBA. Those are their so-called professional players, or amateur professional players, as we call them. That politics has hurt their team. It hurt them last summer in the European Cup. And when they lost in the European Cup, there was a big setback politically. Since that time, they've had 2 or 3 coaching changes, and you can't do that in international basketball. Spain, very solid, will play well. They have a lot of quickness, but I don't think they have the power in the front line to go with us. The team that's mostly organized, as far as the continent is concerned, has to be Italy. They're very well coached. They use a lot of the American system offensively. They're not afraid to zone. They're not afraid to man-to-man. They mix their defenses, and yet still the unknown is Russia, because we have not had competition against them in 2 or 3 years. I think that's going to be the factor as the Russians come in here. There will not be any pressure on Italy in this country. They qualify as Yugoslavia does. Russia has to play in Europe, and that's going to be interesting to see how that develops in the next 2 weeks or next 2 months, because we can go over and scout those games, which Mickey and Bobby will do. From that standpoint, we have to go down south now. We have to look at the South American teams, the Caribbean teams.
In the Pan Am games.
That's right. They will be good. They'll play very physical. Some teams that have the quickness don't have the size on the front line. The teams that have the size on the front line don't have the quickness. From my experience in international competition, I think the best way to play them is extend the defense, even if it's 3 quarters. They are not deep in the backcourt. None of those European teams, including the Russians, they don't like to handle the ball full court. Their frontline players cannot handle the ball full court. And I think the depth that we show up with in Los Angeles, and knowing Bobby and the way he plays really aggressive man-to-man defense, I think we will win with defense, which will create our offense. And I still think we'll have enough depth in the front line, even though there's a lot of question marks about, well, what about our inside game? What about our centers? So, I mean, who's going to dominate at the inside? Who's going to dominate as a guard? We don't really have a dominating guard right now as we look at the trials. But the fact is we will have depth. And knowing that what Bob does with his system, they will play as a team offensively, move the ball very, very well. They will be very, very physical on the boards. And I think once we extend, even if it's just three-quarter man-to-man, I think the depth of our backcourt will eventually catch up with the Europeans as well as the South American teams.
Digger, we're going to hold. We're going to take a break here, come back, and obviously, as we pointed out to the fans, you've had a thorough knowledge of what's going on in international play, and we'd like to talk a little bit more about it. So Pete and Digger and I will be back right after these important words.
Tradition when the U.S. Olympic basketball team meets an all-NBA team July 9th in the Hoosier Dome. Also, the U.S. women's Olympic team will play a team of all-time greats, including Ann Myers and Nancy Lieberman. Tickets are priced at $10 and $5 plus a $2 per order handling charge. To order tickets, mail a stamped self-addressed envelope to Hoosier Dome Olympic Basketball, 100 South Capitol, Indianapolis. Make checks payable to Hoosier Dome Olympic Basketball or call 632-DOME and use Visa or MasterCard.
Billy Packer and Pete Newell back with Digger Phelps here at halftime of a very interesting second game of what amounts to be the fourth game in the series of this doubleheader. Pete, some observations you may have in regard to the competition we're going to see.
Well, I'd like to ask Digger, and I certainly agree with everything Digger said about our needs. Without going into individuals, what would you say would be the priority of needs of this team?
Well, I think that this Olympic basketball team, as we get ready now to prepare for Los Angeles and knowing what we have internationally, the most important thing is how can we go at it defensively. I think that's one of Bobby Knight's traits. I think he's been consistent with that. When we came in here on Monday night and we had our own meeting with him as our coaches, decided that our objectives were three things this week. One, we're looking for kids that can play defensively, that don't play soft defense, that really go after it, play on the ball and really play off the ball well, and no concepts that way. The second thing was offensively, more than anything else, was team play, and the third thing was shot selection. And from those three concepts, Pete, I think Bobby's not a complicated coach. He's more like a Lombardi. You know, you got to block, you got to tackle. In Bobby's concepts, you got to play defense, and from defense, you build your offense. You're going to build it on a rebound. You're going to build it when you convert in the transition. You're going to build it with what you're going to do with ball movement and personnel movement down the floor. And that's how we're going to win. I think that concept will work in the Olympics.
Well, the simplicity and execution concept, Billy, that we talked about one day, and I concur with it, and I think that it's what we need, of course, in any competition, but certainly in our Olympic competition.
I really feel we have got the right coach. I just came back from Yugoslavia. We talked about all this propaganda about are the Russians coming or not coming. And from two writers I know very, very well, the Russians will be here. So what we're hearing between now and June 2nd, that's typical Russian propaganda. The thing is, the Russians right now have 600 athletes in training for all these events. They have to come for one reason. Not so much the gold, which they want to win, but the biggest reason is they have spent so much money within that country on programs, facilities to get ready for this Olympics. They have to come. So you will see 600 of them show up. The second thing is the international coaches respect Bobby Knight. There's that fear. When that game starts, it's like being on the first tee with Billy or Al. You know, Al wants the edge before you even see it up. Well, that's the thing we got going into this game, and I think that's what's going to be a big plus for us, knowing psychologically, even the Italian team, which I really respect, they lost here in Bloomington to a college team back in November, and now we got the best of the rest playing as our nation, and Gromowski knows Bobby Knight, and that fear is there, and I felt that in Yugoslavia. They talked about who's going to be here, how many players, what are we going to do, what's it going to be like in Bloomington, and I said it'll be the best team we've ever had. We'll be ready for everybody in this nation. I thoroughly believe that. I think the coaches here this week have done an excellent job of being Bobby's assistants. There's been no problems at all as far as giving evaluations, as far as what he wants for his team, and obviously from there it goes to the selection committee.
Let me ask you one question.
You know, Pete, we're going to have to break for commercial. I want to say something about him just watching him. I haven't seen him this fired up for a ball game in a long time. And I think, Digger, it really emphasizes what all of you fellas have done. You've really put your heart and soul into helping Bobby get this club prepared, and I know Bobby's very indebted to what you fellas have done, and all of us in the basketball world as fans appreciate what you guys have done. The object is for us to come out #1 in L.A. Appreciate you coming by, and we'll get back with some more action right after this important message.
Thank you.